This is my first time in a Bonafide kayak. I've rented this one. Hey everybody, this is Cynthia, the Fishing Mommy, and today I'm going to be doing a review of the Bonafide SS 127. I recently went to Florida for a few days of solo R&R, and that included doing a lot of fishing. And one of the places that I was fishing actually offers guided fishing excursions. You have the option to choose a SUP or a kayak. I went with a kayak, and the shop supplied me with the Bonafide SS 127. Now, I was pretty excited to try out this kayak because I've heard really great things about it. It's got a lot of really good reviews. I do want to say I spent a long time in this boat that day. I want you to understand this demo is not 15 minutes of paddling around. Our charter was meant to be for 4 hours. We actually spent closer to 5 hours together. And so I was, in the kayak the whole time. And that's a long time to demo a boat. I was fishing and fishing hard, and we did a 3-mile paddle and then 3 miles back. I really put this boat through its paces. So this is a completely unbiased review. We met up at about before 6 a.m. at this really beautiful wildlife preserve, and I hopped into the kayak and off we went. And I'm on a Bonafide kayak, which is a whole new experience because I'm paddling a big boat. Now, a few things that I noticed right away. The Bonafide SS 127, in case you're not familiar with its basic specs, is 12 foot 7 inches long, and it's about 33, I think it's 33 and a half wide. So it is definitely a wide kayak, and it's a long kayak as well. It's similar in proportion actually to the 2019 Hobie Outback. The Hobie's a couple inches longer at 12 foot 9 and just about the same width though. I certainly was comfortable with the size of the kayak initially because I am used to my Hobie. So the first thing I really noticed is that this Bonafide is super, super, super stable. Like, really stable. I was very impressed with it. Certainly more stable than my Outback. This is a boat you could stand and fish in all day. No problem at all. Somebody who wants to sight fish, for instance, this would be a great platform for you. So that was definitely a big point in its favor. Then I started paying attention to the seat. Now the seat on the Bonafide is really, really adjustable. In fact, it's so adjustable that it was a little confusing to figure out all the different things that you could do with it. But one thing I loved about it is that once you had it in a position you wanted, you could lock it in and it wasn't going anywhere. Now, I'll give that one to the Bonafide as well. That is something I'm not a big fan of with my Hobie, the Vantage CTW seat on the 2019 Outback. Doesn't really lock into place solidly. So the Bonafide seat did lock into position. I loved that. The next thing is that as we started paddling, I noticed that it was a super dry ride. Now, I'm pretty heavy. I'm not going to tell you what I weigh because I'm a girl, but I'm heavy. So I'm always paying attention to how much water is coming up the scupper holes and things like that. Bone dry in the Bonafide. Very, very impressed by that. Really dry, no water in the boat, and later on I checked and there was no water in the hull either from any source. So very dry ride, which was great. Later on I looked it up, and the SS 127 has a 475 pound weight capacity. My Outback has a 425 weight capacity. It may have made a difference in terms of the dryness of the ride. Seat comfort. I talked about the adjustability of the seat, but I didn't really yet talk about the comfort. Really very comfortable seat. I would say it's about even with the Outback seat, but I would say the Bonafide seat covering, which is sort of a woven material. It's not a mesh, it's like a smooth woven material. I did like the fabric that the seat was made out of. I did find that more comfortable when I was wearing like basically bathing suit bottoms or like boy shorts where a lot of my thigh was touching the seat. Big tank well in the back, and then a storage hatch up in the front. The storage on this boat is incredible. There's storage everywhere. Rod storage is fantastic. They've made a really interesting approach to on-deck lay-down rod storage. There aren't a bunch of molded in rod holders like you see on most kayaks. On the Bonafide, they actually molded in a number of places where you can lay your rod down and have it held there. So like for instance on the front hatch of the boat, there are actually, you know, grooves molded in that will hold your rod safely. So rod storage, fantastic. Other storage, really, really great. There's even a junk drawer under the seat that slides in and out. You can tell this boat was designed by fishermen for fishermen, and I really liked that aspect of it. I do want to talk a little bit though about the actual layout of the boat, which I think is fantastic. The deck layout itself was fantastic, very comfortable, very open, even with foot pegs. It is nice and wide open. It has a center console that is, you know, you flip it open for storage. I love that center console idea because in my Hobie I actually have a hatch in that very similar spot, and it's a rectangular hatch. And honestly, when I'm out on the water, 95% of the stuff that I'm using goes into that rectangular hatch. The Bonafide has a similar thing. It's not a hatch, but it's like a pod, and it sits in about the same spot. It's narrower, but it's, I think, deeper and it's longer. And I really liked that. I felt that that was really convenient. I didn't love how it opened and closed. It was a little hard to open and close. Maybe that's just a matter of getting used to it though. I don't actually know how watertight it is. I didn't test that out. I know that my Hobie hatches are watertight. It's full of gear tracks. There were gear tracks everywhere, all over this thing. And look, I mean, the Outback has tons of gear track all over the place. I really felt like the Bonafide had just as much, maybe even a little bit more, because it has these two little ones up front on the bow of the boat that you could mount, like for instance a camera mount pointing back at you, and I really liked that. Another thing I liked about the boat was its looks. It has a very clean look to it. I like the fact that it's solid colors. The one I tried out was this orange color, as you see in the video clips, and I like the way it looked. I really did. I had no complaints at all with its looks. Looked nice. I also really like the fact that it came with sea decking already on it. There was lots of sea deck. I love the sea decking, sea deck, or whatever you call this, the mat on the floor. Very comfortable and quiet. I really felt like if I got up and stood up and walked around on the boat a lot, I'd be really comfortable and very quiet. So I liked that a lot. The Bonafide is Powerpole ready. I noticed that has the screws already inserted into the back of the boat. Okay, now for the real talk. We've covered all of the good points that I really liked about the Bonafide SS 127. And as I've mentioned, I'm comparing it favorably against my Hobie Outback in a number of ways. And I mean, if you compare the price of the boat, I could buy two Bonafides for the price of a 2019 Outback. Bonafide is 100% made in the USA, so I have to give it to Bonafide on price as well. But we need to talk about something really important. A kayak is, after all, a way to get from point A to point B. Paddling this boat was absolutely horrible. The tracking was terrible. It zigzagged all over this lake. Man, I'm into my third mile of paddling it, and I have to say, the tracking on this boat is horrible. It is so much more work than it should be. Wow, this is really hard work to paddle. And it's not even a windy day out here. You can see there's hardly any chop on the water. Just a consistent, gentle wind blowing north. And you can see the bow of the boat zigzagging with every stroke of the paddle. And then when I'm not paddling, watch this. It just randomly goes wherever it feels like. I don't understand why. There's hardly anything in the boat, so it's not unbalanced as far as weight distribution or anything. I don't really understand why it's tracking so poorly, but I will say that it's not a great advertisement for Bonafide at all. But I'm really struggling here. This is not an easy paddling boat at all. You guys, I was exhausted. We did a 3-mile run. I understand that's a long paddle, but I've done that plenty before. I was ready to die in this boat. Every single stroke of the paddle, the boat would glide forward far in one specific direction and then off into the other direction. And I even noticed that when I was leaning, the boat would carve, which was a very odd behavior for a kayak. I haven't really had a lot of kayaks do that before, certainly not fishing kayak. I have had whitewater kayaks that did that in the past. The Bonafide does not come with a rudder. I have no idea why that would be the case. I think that's freaking crazy to have a 12-foot boat without a rudder. I'm sorry, that's nuts. I later found out that there is a rudder for the boat. It's an add-on and it's like $300. This boat really needs a rudder. There's no pedal drive option for this boat. I think the market has spoken loud and clear about their desire for pedal drive kayaks. I really think that any company that is trying to compete in the kayak market has to be offering a pedal drive option, especially with a boat that's very, very hard to paddle. As you see in the video, this was not a rough day. There was not a lot of chop on the water. There wasn't a huge amount of wind for most of the day. This boat is hard as hell to paddle. And if you don't even have a pedal drive option for it, I'm not sure what Bonafide is expecting people to do with the boat. It's a heavy boat. I thought the tracking was horrible, horrible, horrible. It has no rudder. It has no skeg, and it has no pedal drive option. For me personally, all of these facts completely outweighed all of the great things that I had to say about this boat. I would not consider purchasing a Bonafide kayak because of these 5 points. I'm hoping that Bonafide is listening to customers giving their feedback about things like this. Hey, I hope this video was helpful for you. If you're thinking about buying a kayak, if you're thinking about upgrading to a new kayak, or if you're just curious to learn more about the Bonafide SS 127. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll catch you later. So that's my update from Bonafide land. Oh, God.